A new round of tariffs went into effect last week as the trade war with China continues to escalate. What does this mean for the economy and consumers? Carolee McGrath sat down with Gary Lefort, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and Professor Emeritus of International Business at American International College, to find out.
There was $250 billion worth of tariffs put on China, which really focused more on the business sector. In September of this year, there was a new round that's going to be more directed at, or going to have a greater consumer impact than before. And it consists of the U.S. imposed tariffs, a 15% tariff on $112 billion worth of Chinese goods. The Chinese responded by putting tariffs on 5%, 10% tariffs on selected goods up to the tune of $75 billion. And then there's supposed to be a follow-on to this round in December, when the United States will impose another $160 billion, and China will follow suit with their own tariffs of their own on $75 billion.
So President Trump had warned just recently China against dragging its feet in negotiations. Are they anywhere close?
I don't think that the Chinese are really ready to negotiate in earnest yet, and I think there's a number of factors that's contributing to that. The first is China is a pro at waiting out, exercising patience, and their position is whoever has the most power, whoever has the best economic position, in the end will still be standing. China also really wants to show a very, very strong position, because they have their Belt and Road Initiative that involves 152 countries around the world. It would be a sign of weakness if they gave in to the U.S. demands. And I think equally important is that this year, 2019, is really very important to the Chinese. In October 1st, it's the 70th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China in 1949. It's also the 30th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square demonstration in 1989. It's also the 100th anniversary of what they call the May 4th movement, which was Chinese revolt against the imperialism of the West after World War I. So all these things are kind of coming, at a time where China wants to feel strong, not weak. There's a high sense of nationalism in the country. And so from their viewpoint, maybe eventually they will have to negotiate. But I don't think they're going to do it this year.
And what will President Trump walk away with, or at least settle on with talks with China?
Well, I think President Trump wants a number of things. One, he wants China to stop violating intellectual property rights. Two, he wants China to stop forcing U.S. companies who want to do business in China to transfer their technology. I think he also wants the Chinese not to manipulate their currency, which improves their balance, their balance of payment. They also want a playing level field for U.S. companies in China, because currently there's a lot of constraints that foreign companies face that local Chinese companies don't. So there's a lot of demands on the part of Trump that he wants. And I think another important one, he wants some type of an enforcement mechanism so that in the future China doesn't make a lot of commitments and then they're not held to keeping those commitments.
Okay, there's been, the uncertainty certainly has affected the stock market, and some people are questioning whether, this ongoing dispute will trigger a recession.
It all depends who you end up talking to as far as an economist goes. What people have to recognize is that all countries go through business cycles. You have an economic downturn, then hopefully you have a long recovery period. Eventually it will peak out and you will start in your down cycle again. The United States had its economic downturn in 2007. It was a long one, lasted until 2009. But we've had a very, very slow, gradual recovery over the past 10 years. And I think we hit the peak last year. So we're on the downside right now, moving towards an economic downturn. I wouldn't necessarily say a recession. I think it really is predicated on the type of monetary and fiscal policies that the Trump administration goes as to whether or not we'll see that economic downturn, say, in 2020 or 2021. I tend to think more towards probably 2021.
So Senator Lindsey Graham had said that politicians on both sides of the aisle have been complaining for years about China. He said, in his words, China cheats. People have been complaining about this, and these are the pains of going up against China. What's your response to that?
And I would say that he's right. What people have to recognize that when you're facing a country like China that has a very, very large trade deficit, that's violating intellectual property rights, that's forcing American companies to transfer technology, you don't have a lot of recourses short of war to catch their attention. And so he's using what he's got available to him, and that is tariffs. But in order to produce the results that you want, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. So there will be short-term pain that we will all have to experience. But if we can get the Chinese to accept, the demands with conditions, I'm sure they'll have conditions. And then I think you can eventually see that in the long run, the U.S. Business community, in turn, the consumer, will benefit from it.
But will this hurt them enough, like that next round of tariffs in December, for example? I mean, how many further steps do you have to take before they say, we're going to come to the table?
I think the Chinese are hurting right now. In the 2007-2000 timeframe, their annual economic growth was around maybe 13-14%. Their annual economic growth this year was initially estimated by the Chinese to be around 6.5. It looks like it's going to be more towards 6. It looks like next year it's going to go below 6. That's an incredible drop, over a relatively, short period of time, and that's due in part to the, to the trade war. Their production activity over the last 4 or 5 months, have been very, very, very weak. They're really faced with a lot of social unrest, not only in their country, but now with Hong Kong. So they really can't afford to wait too long and then end up finding that they've got real major internal problems, in the country. So I think that it's working, but it's just going to take some time. And the question is, will the American people be willing to exercise that type of patience? Certainly, the business community is a little antsy right now because they're feeling the full brunt of it, especially based on the $250 billion imposed. The American consumer hasn't felt the effects until this last round, and we'll see how patient they'll be.